Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic, here with another tune-up, where I take one of your viewer-submitted decks and give it a tweak to help it better do what you want it to do. But before we get started, I wanted to remind everybody that we're now officially affiliated with our Canadian retailer of choice, Harry Tarantula. If you want to help support the channel by picking up singles or sealed product, head on over and use the promo code CMDR Space Mechanic at checkout. Now let's see what's in the workshop today. Viewer Neptune Gaming writes, my Melek Izzet Paragon deck is packed with storm and copy effects. I'm open to changing the commander, but I don't want to spend a huge amount of money on this list. But I look forward to your upgrade options. Alright, perfect. We're looking at an Izzet deck that wants to copy spells, and you've got a great commander for it. Melek Izzet Paragon is a weird wizard, literally, that lets you cast from the top of your library, getting you bonus copies if you do. This is a great effect and can net you some obscene value with the right amount of top deck manipulation. Before we look at your current list, some recommendations for your commander. If you want some variety, I'd recommend looking at a partner pairing using Elegith, Crossroads Augur, and Ludwig Necro Alchemist. This helps use many of the top deck manipulation effects that Melek needs to instead fuel your draw. You could also pivot to mono blue with God Eternal Kefnet as your commander. This would make an excellent change, sticking with the theme of casting spells off the top of your library, though in fewer colors, with some potentially better consistency. You could also expand into Temur and run Calamax, as has been featured here on the channel previously. Melek and Calamax are copycats cut from the same cloth. Your current list is full of meat, but lacks some of the potatoes. What I mean by that is that you've got plenty of payoff cards in the deck. Comet Storm, Ignite Memories, Epic Experiment, all fantastic cards that you want to cast off the top of your library. But some of the setup cards are missing, ways to manipulate the top card of your library consistently. You've got plenty of one-time effects that do this. Brainstorm, Anticipate, and Telling Time, but the closest thing you really have to repeated manipulation of the top card of your library is Precognition Field. Your included creatures really help play up that you want to be copying spells and spell slinging, but be careful. Having to pay extra mana to copy a spell with Echo Mage or Dualcaster Mage very quickly gets you into the range of paying 6 or 7 mana to draw a few extra cards. Your big payoffs are X spells that you want to use all the mana you can to cast. Keep that in mind. The big area we want to improve is that top deck manipulation. Having consistent scrying effects that we can control are important to what we want to do here. Cards like Crystal Ball are invaluable, along with the severely underrated Soothsaying. Cards that let you scry at instant speed, when you want, as often as you want, are going to be your bread and butter. You're also missing a few very good one-time effects like Ponder or Preordain. Don't underestimate having to pay only 1 mana for these top deck manipulation effects. With all of this being said, we also want to ensure the deck functions without Melek in play. Because they cost 6 mana to begin with, if they get removed once, you're basically not going to be able to recast them in an efficient manner. You're lacking consistent ramp in the deck, which is fine in these colors, but that means you're playing on curve more often than not. Let's make sure you can go commanderless and still thrive. So this gives us a clearer game plan. We want top deck manipulation to synergize with our commander. We want big payoff spells that are bonkers if we get additional copies of them. And we want Spell Slinger synergies so the deck does something if Melek isn't in play. So, how do we make the deck work without Melek? You've got a good start already with Double Vision, Thousand Year Storm, and Swarm Intelligence. They ensure that Once you hit the high end of your curve, you're always getting at least one more copy of every spell you cast. You have Shark Typhoon in the deck, but how about Metallurgic Summonings as well? Ways to ensure that each spell you cast, whether copied or not, has additional value. Young Pyromancer, Murmuring Mystic, and Talrand Sky Summoner are all classic Spellslinger value engines as well, helping to build up your board whether you're casting a setup card or a payoff card. It's going to be crucial to your game plan to stick a value piece, then start slinging spells. Don't overcommit your value engines to the board because that will lead to not casting enough payoff or leave you open to blowouts with removal. I want to take the higher end of your mana curve down just a little bit by removing some of the lower impact pieces in favor of the ongoing value engines. The Mirari Conjecture could be replaced by less expensive one-time effects like Recoup, which have the benefit of being doubled by your other effects. Fury Storm doesn't really make sense in a deck where you may only cast your commander once the entire game. Even if you net 2 copies, you're still paying on par pricing. Drawn from Dreams could easily be a dig through time in this deck, where you'd have an easier time delving away cards to cast it for the exact same effect at instant speed. And I'd include 2 wheels in the deck, the classic Windfall and the new Wheel of Misfortune from Commander Legends. Both are baseline good that only get better when copied, and both synergize with Narset Parter of Veils, which is already in your list. They'll easily become your most efficient sources of draw. Another new Commander Legends card that slots right in this deck is Jeska's Will. Even without Melek on the battlefield, this is an amazing ritual or temporary draw effect that can help bridge gaps on setup turns. And I'd also recommend adding in Electro Dominance to the list. It's an instant, can serve as a game ender or targeted removal, lets you cast free spells from your hand, and with proper sequencing, can be copied by copiers off of the copies by copies. Sorry. What I mean is that an Electro Dominance for 2 can let you cast a free increasing Vengeance from your hand, targeting the other copy of Electro Dominance on the stack, letting you deal more damage and cast more cards from your hand. Really, casting free spells in a deck that copies spells is insane value, and how this deck will no doubt close out games. For upgrades, we want to look at one thing in particular: top deck manipulation. There are some very expensive but very effective methods of top deck manipulation that fit seamlessly into this deck. The first is the recently reprinted Scroll Rack. You'll never find a better time to pick one of these up than right now, as they're more plentiful than they've ever been. And being able to not only change the top card of your library, but set up whole spell doubling chains for Melek, I'd call this a priority pickup. The next is Sensei's Divining Top. The most expensive of these options, the top is a classic for any deck looking to reorganize its library. While the better budget option, Soothsaying, is what I've included in the list, redundancy is always important to your game plan. Then there's Mystical Tutor. Not only does this let you tutor up an instant or sorcery, but it puts it exactly where you want it, on top of your library. Being an instant means you can use it to grab another instant, then cast whatever you've tutored for off of the top with Melek. And that's not even mentioning the value floor on the card, which is still just an incredible tutor. Lastly, extra turn spells. While it's not everyone's cup of tea, the moment you get a copy of an extra turn spell, it's game over. And some of the extra turn spells, like Temporal Mastery, are only about $5, so don't really break the bank. But, as with every tune-up where they're relevant, I recommend them in upgrades because they represent a big step up in power for your deck. A big thanks to our viewers for submitting these deck lists, and I certainly hope that this deck's owner is going to let us know in the comments below how they've chosen to tweak and tune this deck. And if you want to submit a deck for a tune-up, please reach out via email, via Twitter, or in the comments of this or any video. I make sure to read them all personally. Let's take a look at how we've chosen to tweak this list today. I've worked to bring the curve down quite a bit by cutting some of the higher casting cost spells that don't do a lot on their own. We've added in more synergies for cast triggers, some more creatures to clog up the board, and plenty of new top deck manipulation options. I didn't change the mana base in my list, but please consider dropping Temple of the False God, Reliquary Tower, and Evolving Wilds from the list in favor of basic lands. These cards will do more harm than good to a deck looking to cast on curve. While playing, your big win cons are going to be direct damage spells, so use them wisely. You only have a few solid X casting cost spells in the list, but they'll be your bread and butter. It may be tempting to cast them for small value or as spot removal, but save it for going to the face. I hope you end up making a few changes to the list, Neptune Gaming, and I want you to let me know how it ends up going. But as always, until next time, folks, good luck and have fun. And a big shout out to all of our patrons as usual. We couldn't do any of this without your help. A special shout out goes to our Lodestone Golems, Ben Davis, Ben Frame, Sterling Langford, and Will Briggs. And especially to our Metalwork Colossi, Austin Charlotte and Charles Olson. Thanks everybody for your continued support.